Victoria Woodards.
And I'm City Manager Elizabeth Pauli.
Welcome back to Inside Tacoma. Well, Elizabeth, here we are again. The last session, I know, the last session of the year. And really excited this month. We're going to focus this month just really using this Inside Insights for an opportunity for Elizabeth and I to talk about looking back on 2022 and what we've been proud of and what we were happy that we accomplished, and then kind of focusing a little bit forward to see what we're going to be working on in 2023. So it's been a busy year, Elizabeth.
It's been a busy year, Mary, and there's so much that we could cover, and I know we're not going to get to it all today, but start us off. What about 2022, Mayor?
Other than being it's been a really busy year, and there have been, obviously we know our community has been through a lot this year. And some would say, what could you be happy about? Because the year has been really tough, but there have been some good things.
There's been a lot of good things.
That have happened in 2022. So I'll start and name a couple because there's so much I'm proud of. But the first thing I'll talk about is, which seems kind of simple, but is huge, is the appointment of a new council member. That in Councilmember Ogie Diaz, and excited to have her join us. But what makes her appointment even more exciting is that we appointed the first Latina to the City Council, and who can believe that in 2022 we're still talking about the first, right?
Wonderful addition and really exciting for the community.
Absolutely, and what a great asset she is to the council as well. So we've gotten Councilmember Diaz. We've been talking a lot about our chiefs, and we're going to have our other chief on today, but our new police chief that we hired on in January.
Just this year?
I know, it feels like he's been here so much longer. And thank you, Elizabeth, so much. A great choice and an opportunity for us to confirm a great chief, and obviously he's hit the ground running.
Absolutely.
Has encountered so many challenges in our community, but is committed to moving this community forward and trying to make us the safest community. But obviously that comes in partnership with the crime plan that he has put together and is working with both our officers and our community. And he's done a report here in November, but we look to hear from him again in the beginning of the year. And we've seen some successes, but we know that we've got a lot
of work to do.
Absolutely. But what's so great is that everyone's committed to it. I think a thing that's been dragging on for me forever that kind of made a milestone is the Tide Flat sub-area plan.
Yes.
People are saying, will you ever get anywhere? And I'm really happy that over the summer we were able to, as an executive steering committee, to be able to move forward to the City Council, and the City Council moved it forward to the Planning Commission. All of the alternatives for the Planning Commission to look at, and so look forward. That's another thing that'll be coming back in 2023. But I'm really happy that we got it to a really good point in 2022 for it to get to the Planning Commission. Let's see, another thing I'm excited about, we finally passed the 2023-2024 biennial budget.
Another biennial budget.
Unanimously.
Yes.
And I know I get a lot of pushback sometimes. Why are you always happy about unanimous? But it's the fact that we all worked really hard together to make sure that there was something in the budget that reflected the needs as it related to every council member's vision for Tacoma. And so that obviously was really excited, but we're investing $101 million in affordable housing and homelessness, which is really important. We're going to talk a little bit later today about the behavioral health response unit that we're standing up, which is going to be my number one priority for 2023. So excited about that. Something else that we did this year that has come to a close, but we saw great success in, and that is our GRIT program.
Right.
Our Growing Resilience in Tacoma pilot, the guaranteed income pilot that we did here in Tacoma. 110 families for the past year got a $500 stipend every single month, no questions asked.
It's been life-changing.
It really has, and you've heard some of the stories. Amazing what people have been able to do, but just some of the demographic data. 83% of the participants were women, 16% were men, 1% were non-binary, 26% were African American, 5.5% identified as Latino, 38.6% were of mixed descent, and 23.6% were identified as white. And this is what's really interesting, these are the statistics I really like, because people think people with $500 extra are going to run out and buy new TVs or go on vacations. And they did some really simple things. Almost 42% of the funds were spent at retailers and discounted superstores on things like food, clothing items, household goods, and hygiene products. So people didn't go out and just waste this money. They spent it on what they needed. Almost 25% was spent at grocery stores. Almost 7% was spent on transportation costs like gas and car repair. And I know one of the recipients that we interviewed talked about the fact that they were able to fix their car that they hadn't been able to drive for over a year. And now they've got their car fixed and can get kids back and forth to school and to daycare and to activities. And then finally, other expenses included loan repayments or medical expenses and tuition. So I know one family cleaned up their credit. And last time I talked to them, they actually qualified for a loan for a house to purchase a house. So it's like we really made a difference in people's lives. So that was really exciting. And then as it relates to jobs, our partnership that we had with Workforce Central to really look at health careers. And we started an Introduction to Healthcare Employment and Apprenticeship program where we had constituents who had an opportunity to go through the program and get paid while they're in the program. Because in a lot of these cases, when people are trying to upskill, they can't afford to take a day off work in order to go get training. So the ability to get paid and have the training was really exciting. And so
huge.
It is really, and we did it in partnership with Workforce Central and the Tacoma Housing Authority. And so, and I have to be honest, I missed it in GRIT, but want to also say that our GRIT program was successful because of our partnership with United Way of Pierce County.
Yes.
And a shout out to Donna Ponapento and her incredible staff who helped make that happen. Now, selfishly, one more thing. See, I told you, I could spend the whole time, and once you get going, I can talk about so many things that are great. But the other thing I'm really proud of in 2022 is the fact that I got named the president for the National League of Cities.
It's quite an honor, Mayor.
It is an honor, and I know it makes it's more responsibility on my plate, but I'm really excited about the opportunity. I mean, NLC represents 19,000 cities, towns, and villages across the United States, and they advocate. As a matter of fact, I really believe that the reason we got ARPA dollars was because of the advocacy provided by the National League of Cities. And we saw $60 million in Tacoma from ARPA dollars. So that's just one way they help. But they work on a lot of issues for cities. And during my year as president of NLC, I'm going to focus on affordable housing and homelessness and job creation. So being able to work with the Department of Labor and the Department of Transportation at the federal level to get more resources.
For the cities where it's at.
Exactly. So I'm really excited to use that role to bring more resources to Tacoma and to bring the issues of city and towns to the forefront of federal government so that they know the issues we're facing, like crime in our communities and alternative responses, to have them look at how they're funding us and how they can do a better job. So that's, if I can breathe now.
That's a lot.
But Elizabeth, I bet your list is just as long. So what are you excited about?
Well, and there's more.
And there's more, right?
Well, first of all, I could start off with ditto, because every one of the things that you mentioned, Mayor, represent so much effort from such a talented staff that works behind the scenes and in the trenches to make all of the things that you mentioned come true.
Right.
And you didn't even touch on Student Government Day.
Oh my God, right?
That was really a great
little
success story in 2022 that I think will have ripple effects, because we were able to bring an amazing, diverse, dynamic group of 50 students to learn more about how government works. Because as you say, our youth are our present, and they're going to help set us up for a successful future for the community. So that's a success I would mention.
Absolutely.
And Mayor, because this is the Mayor and the Manager show, I want to just focus on the departmental side for a minute. Every single one of our departments puts together a list of achievements as we go into the budget cycle. And I can't share that list today. It's just too large and too significant. But the community can look at it by going back and looking at the departmental presentations that we gave to the budget. Those accomplishments are listed. And some of that you can look at by looking at our budget books. And we have a great online budget book this year, thanks to our talented budget team.
Absolutely.
But from the city attorney's office to Tacoma venues and events, and every department in between, I'm so grateful for and proud of the strides that we took in 2022 in tackling some of the issues that came from developing a hybrid workplace, while we continued to serve the community, meeting the basic needs, and while we saw the basic needs of the community changing, both in volume and in nature. And just really, really proud of the team. But just a little sliver of the work that we've done that I'll kind of get into some detail, just focusing on our human resources department, maybe a department that's a little less visible to the public. So,
but definitely the backbone of the work that we do.
Absolutely, and important to all the work that we do. So they worked hard to build out our equal employment opportunity program and learning path for employees, and we completed our first equal employment opportunity community of practice cohort, and with over 30 City of Tacoma employees that from various departments, so they'll be able then to share that work more broadly throughout our organization. We launched Tacoma U, which is an online internal learning system resource to make opportunities more available across all of our staff, and really important for recruitment and retention and just the morale of our workforce to have such great training more available to everyone. We also completed a workforce equity study, as well as an employee survey, both things that really give us really good information about how we can do a better job and help our employees then turn around and do a better job serving the community.
If our employees are happy, they make our community happy, but they've got to love the work they do as well.
Indeed. And importantly, we've created an equitable recruiting and selection program for hiring managers. So we just have done a lot of work in 2022, and that department in particular is connected to all of it. So just get really, really proud of continuing to do the work under changing conditions and high pressure, and at the same time keeping our anti-racist transformation commitment really at the top of everything we do. And you've heard you've heard all of the
reports, absolutely.
We've had monthly report outs from our departments this year, a little bit different focus, so the council could see the deep dive that we're doing throughout the whole organization. So those are some of the things I'm proud of.
Elizabeth, that is a short list of a very long list. There are so many things that we could talk about that our employees do. And I just want to take this opportunity as we're in this season just to say thank you. There are over 3,600 people who work for the City of Tacoma and Tacoma Public Utilities. And even the long list that I named, right, none of that works.
Short.
It does.
Always falls short.
But it falls on all of our employees, because you and I are only two people.
Right.
And we couldn't do a tenth of this work by ourselves. And so the support of all of those at City Hall. So please allow me just this opportunity to say thanks to our employees at City Hall who wake up every day thinking about our community, and they're the forward-facing piece of this work that people see. You may see you and I around and about, but it's really our employees who are helping to get all of this work done every day. So thanks to all of you. So we've gone backwards, and now we get to go forward. So Elizabeth, I know 2023 is on the horizon. So I mean, Elizabeth, as you look forward to 2023, what are you excited about? What are you excited to see coming forward and working on as we go into this new year?
Mayor, you mentioned the adoption of the 23-24 budget, and really the theme of that budget was maintaining our momentum. And while that might not seem like a super exciting theme, really embedded in there is the fact that we have some very exciting programs and plans that we've worked really hard to adopt, and that will be really making great strides in implementation this year. So our climate action plan, for example, our racial equity action plans, and other examples. Vision Zero, we're going to be doing a lot of work in Vision Zero. Our affordable housing action strategy, we'll keep moving that forward. So we'll be doing a lot of good and exciting work in those areas. We also are going to, kind of sticking with the HR theme a little bit, we expect to be doing a lot of hiring and a fair amount at the executive level. Like most organizations, we're needing to look at a lot of succession at certain levels of the organization. And when we have those opportunities, it's an opportunity to continue to diversify our organization. And because of HR's work in developing a program that really ensures that we're using that lens in our hiring, there's just some really exciting prospects there, including bringing on a new deputy city manager in this cycle, given the council's approval of that budget. And so those are some of the things I'm excited about, just continuing to work with our talented employees and with our committed community in trying, just as the example you gave of the GRIP program, helping to create a place where everyone can thrive. And that's an exciting thing.
That's where we're supposed to be, the city of destiny, where people come to fulfill theirs.
Right.
Absolutely.
And what about you, Mayor? What are you most excited about going into 2023?
I
know it's hard to get you
I know
excited.
it is. I was like, I know.
Yeah.
I'm a little subdued.
Yeah.
I wake up excited. And I wake up excited not because of our challenges, although they are here and we must face them, but I wake up at the opportunity to be able, and excited about the opportunity to be able to address the challenges we face. And again, this excitement doesn't come from thinking that we have got everything nailed and we've got it all figured out. It comes from the place that we're working really hard to figure it out. And that we have talented people and committed people, including us, who want to see Tacoma be the city that we all want it to be. And so as I think about what gets us there, I think I've already mentioned that my number one priority for 2023 is really the Behavioral Health Crisis Response Unit. And I invite everybody to stay tuned, because in a few minutes we're going to talk
to
our
great discussion.
with our fire chief, so everyone can understand what that means. I am also excited that we've had to shift a little bit during the pandemic. I've been talking about this great faith audit that we're going to do, and we're finally going to get it done.
Right.
And so pulling together, we especially have seen this during COVID. Our faith community stands up a lot and does a lot of work, whether that is feeding the homeless or collecting coats or giving out Christmas toys or providing meals or providing safe parking, all these things that are, or reading, collecting books for kids or providing some after school programming. I mean, our faith community does so much, but we don't know everything they do, and there's not a way to capture that. So I'm really excited that we've got four different ministers from our community from different faiths who will stand up. We've got a rabbi, and different people are going to stand up and be a part of this and help lead this audit for our community, so that we can truly understand how to better partner with our faith community. And so that's going to get done. I'm excited about that.
Project.
Yeah. Not as excited about the crime in our community, but certainly very pleased. I talked about the chief's first report, but we'll be getting more reports and following through with phase 2 and phase 3 on our violent crime reduction plan, and excited about getting to reduction. We're over 40 homicides this year, and that's incredibly tough for Tacoma. So looking forward to continuing to implement and see even greater strides in reducing violent crime in our community. Also really excited about the fact that we're going to be working more closely with our businesses. We did in our budget, we did pass an increase in business license fees, business license tax fees, but the increase is not the exciting part. The exciting part is sitting down with our business community. Our economic development committee is going to spend time really talking to them to talk about how can some of these funds be used to best support our businesses. So we know the first year it's to support the general fund and to help balance the budget. But the second year, how do we make sure we're doing things that address their issues? I know we did some of that with ARPA money, whether that was fixing windows or being able to support some kind of enhanced safety in our business districts, but how can we do even better? And having that general conversation will be helpful. So I think those are just some of the things. I've talked about being president of NLC. We also this year, the Tide Flats Steering Committee will be working with our Planning Commission as they get to be done there, and so we're moving forward with that. But those are just a few things that I'm excited about in 2023, and I'm sure there are things we know about, but there'll be so many more that we
More
don't.
to come.
Absolutely. So, well, Elizabeth, I think that kind of sums up what we're going to do what we've done and where we're going, but we've got more conversation to have. Next, we'll be up with our Fire Chief Tory Green to talk about our behavioral health response unit, and we look forward to seeing you in just a few moments back here on Inside Tacoma. Thank you.
New speed limits are coming to Tacoma. In 2023, it's 20 miles per hour in residential neighborhoods. And it's 25 miles per hour in 6 business districts, including 6th Avenue, Lincoln, McKinley Hill, Old Town, Proctor, and South Tacoma. 5 miles an hour less makes a big difference. Slower speeds give more time to stop and, if collisions happen, cause less harm. Tacoma is working to make our streets safer for everyone.
Welcome back to Inside Tacoma.
On this week's Inside interview, we're really pleased to have with us our Fire Chief, Chief Tory Green, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about the behavioral health response team that we're putting together at the City of Tacoma.
Well, you know, the city's budget was just passed, and today we're highlighting a program that was approved in that budget. So, Chief Green, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've got a lot of questions about this, and there's been a lot of community interest in this topic, so much so that we've received people who've shown up to testify and petitions from our community, and they're really excited about the ability to stand up this behavioral health team, but before we do that, Elizabeth, can you talk just a little bit, because there's been a lot of conversations and there's a lot of confusion around the many things that the city is working on, but can you kind of just lay out for us the difference between the behavioral response teams and the other potential teams that we're looking at standing up here in Tacoma?
Sure, Mayor, and that's a really good question because it's actually been a kind of a point of confusion in the community.
Absolutely.
And it really always helps when we're talking about the same thing or using some of the same language. So we commissioned through the Matrix Corporation a study on alternative response several years ago.
Right.
And they came back focused on 3 recommendations. One was to expand our homeless outreach team.
Yep.
And we're doing that. The second was to create a mental health crisis response team. And these are, both of those examples are examples of where we can enhance our services outside of the police response. That's been the standard response.
Right.
And this is where we're going to focus our conversation today on this behavioral health response team. The third area of recommendation that we call one of the alternative responses that we're looking at is creating a team of what community safety or community service officers, which would be non-commissioned officers,
right,
that would respond to the community calls for service when they've experienced a crime, but it's not a violent crime. It's maybe like your car window was broken and you want to file a police report, and we want you to.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
this would set up a team that could come out and provide that service in the community. So those are the 3 alternative response recommendations that we've been working on now for several years.
Yeah, I was going to say, I kind of remember in a mid-modification budget in 2020, at some point, I think we started talking about this, and we've put out some requests for inquiries, and we've done some other things, but haven't been really successful in launching all of this. So now with this focus on the behavioral response team, I think we're going to get somewhere. And where else to put that team than with our fire department?
You'll find it's a really natural link. I do want to mention one other thing that comes up often in the community conversations. Yeah. This is to have a community trauma response team.
Right.
Now, when we use the term alternative response inside the city, we haven't been talking about that because that's been something that did not come through the recommendations that were focused on the police department. But that's also been something that's important to us. We made some efforts to bring on an enhanced community crisis response team in the past, and we're looking at how to do that again, make another effort to bringing that online as we go into this next biennium.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Elizabeth. That's a really important distinction, especially since there is a certain portion of the community. I remember this kind of came forward when I was a council member. Yes. From a few community organizations that were really trying to push this, and I know we've tried several times, but I think this is a good opportunity to figure out, well, the traditional way didn't work. How can we look at this differently? So hoping to continue to engage those community groups in this conversation as they've stayed really close to us. But Chief, really excited about this opportunity. Obviously, the fire department has some experience in this area with TFD Cares, but this is another opportunity for us to really work closely with our community as we think about a behavioral health crisis. And when people are having that, that's much different from when somebody's house is being broken into, or when something else has occurred, some kind of criminal activity has occurred. Behavioral health is not a criminal activity, but certainly becomes an issue for our community. So Chief, at the council's direction and in the budget, there is funding to stand up this behavioral health team, and the Tacoma Fire Department is going to be doing this. So can you tell us a little bit more about what it's going to look like and how you envision this program?
Yeah, so what we've heard from the community is that the current response to people who are in mental health crisis is not appropriate.
Yeah.
That we could dispatch different and more appropriate resources to those calls and have better outcomes if we did so. And so that's what the goal of this behavioral health crisis response unit is to really send the appropriate resources, which we would define as, first and foremost, a mental health provider for someone who's in mental health crisis, and secondly, a medical professional. In our mind, that would be a registered nurse at least. And the reason for that is because a lot of times people can present with mental health crisis, people can present with erratic behavior for medical reasons. And we want to make sure that we're covering both bases by having both resources present on the scene. And so our idea of what the response unit would look like would involve just those two positions. In a unit that would be dispatched, just like the rest of our units are dispatched. So when a call comes in, if we're able to recognize it as a behavioral health crisis situation, then we would send that unit, and it may or may not respond with other resources.
So Chief, you have a very successful program right now in TFD Cares. And can you tell me how this will work with the new program that we're bringing online and how they align?
Yeah, so TFD Cares we've had since 2013, and it's a program that was originally implemented to address, very much like this, to address more appropriately calls that are made to 911 that don't really need a fire engine or a medic unit. And so that program has been incredibly successful, as you noted. We've been able, once we refer people from the field to FD Cares has the ability to decrease that person's use of 911 by over 90%. And so incredibly successful. And this started at a time when some of those people were calling 911 more than 100 times a year. And so it really helped us to reduce the call volume. And so anyway, the point of that program is really to not only identify the people who have a need that's not really 911 specific, but then to more importantly connect them with the appropriate resources, and then to follow through with them. So to case manage them, to make sure that not only are they connected with the appropriate resources, but that they're actually getting to those appointments and seeing those people, and they're getting the things that they need to make sure that they're staying stable and not needing to call for emergency services in the future. And so this program would fit perfectly into that structure. In fact, we, as you mentioned, in 2020 going back and looking, we actually applied for, we actually submitted as a budget proposal a program almost identical to what we're planning to implement, and received council approval to move forward with it. And unfortunately, we were unable to get people to take the positions.
We're hopeful this time. And
very hopeful.
You have a track record with alternative response because you've done it within your own organization, and I think this will be really a great addition.
I think so too. So, as we think about this, because I think when you stand up a new unit like this, everybody's response is that, these are all the things that you can do. But the reality is it's still only going to be 2 people, and we're going to manage to that. But Chief, help me in some kind of expectation setting for folks. We've talked about what this office will do, but what are the kinds of things that this office won't be able to do? And I think that's important for our community to understand that.
Yeah, so back to the reason for this unit, it was intended to effectively replace police,
yeah.
Right? So police aren't responding to calls they shouldn't have been responding to in the first place. The reason police are called for those calls most frequently is because those people are behaving in an unsafe way.
Right.
Otherwise, other people would intervene. And so it's unrealistic to think that we will be able to send this unit on every call without assistance. There will be, in fact, we hope there will be a lot of incidents where we'll be able to send this unit alone, but it's very likely that we will have to send at some point either police or fire or both to those calls to accompany that crew to make sure that they're safe. So that they can do the work that they need to do. So it doesn't mean that if the police go with this call, that they will take over that call or that they will do the work. They're just there to ensure that the scene is safe for everyone that's there.
Well, I think that's really important, right? I have often said nowadays that we ask our police to do as much as we've asked our teachers to do, right? They're not just policing. They're expected to be so many other things, and I think that having a behavioral health person in their back pocket, or someone that they can go with or call on, in addition to having a medical nurse available. And I think those make that they can get in and do their part, which is keeping everybody safe. But then the other two people can come in and do their part, which is really to deal with the situation at hand. And so I am really excited to get this stood up and to see the difference that it makes in our community.
Because, Chief, the need is so high and the community support for this is really high, we talked about a compressed timeline, about really trying hard to bring this on even faster than what we maybe planned at the beginning of this budget proposal cycle. And I know that you're going to start off the year with getting a manager in place, but you want to talk about the team and the timeline a little bit?
Sure. So first and foremost, we're going to hire a program manager. The reason for that is I think I think this kind of a program needs someone who has experience with mental health crisis. And so I want to get someone in position who can provide guidance, quite frankly, about what's appropriate, what's needed, what's not needed. And so once that person's on board, then the plan is to hire a nurse practitioner. And the reason for that role is to provide medical oversight, to make sure that whatever our practices or protocols are in terms of our response, that we're doing that in a way that meets medical standards. But we may find that that's not a position that we need. I don't know. We'll see. And then once those two are on board, then the plan would be to really kind of build the structure of the program. So that would take, in January we'd hire the program manager, ideally. And sometimes shortly thereafter, by the end of February, we'd have a medical oversight person hired. And then we would look at building the program out in the subsequent months, and then hiring the nursing, the response staff, the nurse and the mental health providers, to do the work in the field. And I'm really, really hoping that we can get that done by June and then be live in July.
That's great to look forward to that, Chief. And I've heard you speak before about how important it is to build that program, because we need to be able to have throughputs, right? When your team makes contact, tell us, what's next.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So this goes back to the question of what we're not going to be able to do. One thing that we're not going to be able to be is the destination for these calls. Right. We can only be the vehicle through which people get to real definitive care to be able to take care of their mental health issues. And so the key is going to be throughput. It's going to be making relationships and building into that structure the ability to deliver these patients to people who really can provide the care that they need. And so that's what that gap in hiring the initial folks and then hiring the field folks is really intended to do, is to make sure that once we have field people, they don't go on a call and then get stuck with someone because they have nowhere to take them. Right. So we need to make sure that there's a system in place, that we've made partnerships with organizations that provide those services, and that we're able to roll out the program and have better chance of success, because our folks will be able to go from call to call to call successfully.
Right, and the key word in here is crisis, right?
Yes.
We are responding in a crisis. We're not meant to be the stop point, but we're meant to be the starting point to get people the help that they need. Absolutely. So, and Chief, I think TFD Cares is a perfect example of how you all have been able to be that stopgap to connect people. Are there situations that you've seen in TFD Cares where you've seen this model work, that you're really proud of, that can give our listening audience and our community members some idea of the success you've had with TFD Cares?
I would just say that the key to TFD Cares is that it serves as a hub. And so the key has been in our partnerships. And so we spent, when we rolled this out, we spent a year going around the community, talking with people, giving them an idea of what we wanted to do, helping them to get buy-in and then support for the program. And so whenever we have someone that's referred, we're easily able to connect them with those resources. I was just somewhere in public, and someone came up to me and said, "Oh, you guys have that FD Cares program? We love FD Cares." This is someone who works in a hospital.
Wow.
We love FD Cares because it is a great facilitator for connecting people to the appropriate resources. And so I really, really hope that as we build this program out, that the organizations in the community will be able to provide the support that we need to make this effort a success.
Well, and just also want to add, I mean, we support, we have 1/10% that we get for mental health sales tax. And there are a lot of local mental health programs that we support that we've partnered with already. So really looking forward to partnering even deeper with them, and also making sure that the community gets back to us on what the additional needs may be. Other cities have done this across the country, but the reality is we've got to do it so it looks right and fits for Tacoma, which may be a little bit different. And City Manager, I know that you have a commitment to a success, as does the council. So we're going to work together as a community to get the right fit for Tacoma.
Looking forward to it, Mayor.
Absolutely. So Chief, just as we wrap up, I've heard you speak passionately about this service. And that you want to hear from the community. That's what I just said. We want to know what's working, what's not working, as we move down this path for alternative responses or our mental health service team. Talk just a little about what does it mean to you, and why do you think it's important for us to engage others in this conversation?
Yeah, a couple of reasons. One, I think again, the buy-in is going to be critical. I think I have a couple of meetings coming up. One is with the provider community to help them understand what we're trying to do, to get their input, to see what they think would work and won't work, so we can avoid making any mistakes. And to your point, Mayor, this is very community specific. In some communities where these types of efforts have been successful, the program was built out of a hospital system where the hospital had all the services to provide for those folks to do that work. And other systems, different circumstances allowed for them to be successful. Ours is going to be completely dependent upon what exists in Tacoma, what resources are here in Tacoma, what providers are here in Tacoma, and what providers, most importantly, want to do this work. And so I think as we're reaching out to the community for input, we're looking for their ideas on on giving them our idea, talking about what they think would be successful. But also, I really believe the success of this program is going to lie in folks who want to see this program be successful. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping that those folks are going to step forward and become a part of the solution and be part of the program. Be for the providers out there that came to you and the rest of the council and express such passion for this. I'm really hoping to see those folks show up and make this successful. As I mentioned, we tried this before. We got no one to show up to play in the game, and so I'm really hoping that this time folks will really be present and be a part of the solution.
Well, thank you for that, Chief. And that becomes, they've challenged us to stand this up, and now we challenge our community to join us in this work. I've heard a lot of people testify about people ready to take these jobs, so I'm looking forward to having those people apply for the job. And so I
was just I already received one resume.
Oh, hey, all right. Well, then look,
yep.
This is better than we got before, so it's already better. And so sometimes it's just a matter of time, right? And the right time. And hopefully this is it, because certainly we have seen, felt, and heard that our community is ready for this kind of response. And I couldn't agree more. Chief, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate you being here and for all the work that you do and now taking on this new task. And to all of our firefighters, thank you so much for showing up every single day. So when we come back, we'll jump right into our final segment, Inside Inquiry, where we answer your questions. Thank you so much for joining us for this segment of Inside Tacoma.
New speed limits are coming to Tacoma. In 2023, it's 20 miles per hour in residential neighborhoods. And it's 25 miles per hour in 6 business districts, including 6th Avenue, Lincoln, McKinley Hill, Old Town, Proctor, and South Tacoma. 5 miles an hour less makes a big difference. Slower speeds give more time to stop and, if collisions happen, cause less harm. Tacoma is working to make our streets safer for everyone.
Welcome back. Now we're at our final segment today, Inside Inquiry, where you can ask the mayor and the manager any questions you'd like. And these questions come directly from residents in Tacoma.
We hear from you in so many different forms, in community forum, virtual forum, social media, and in constituent letters. And this is just one place where we try to be responsive to the questions that you ask.
All right, Elizabeth, so since they've asked some questions, why don't we jump in and answer them?
All right.
All right, Elizabeth, I'll let you go first today.
So our first question came in via email from a constituent to our Councilmember Bushnell. And the question's a good one, so we thought we'd bring it into this forum to talk about it a little bit. Are there any concrete plans in the near future to get vehicles off the road that have no or expired tabs, missing license plates, or where the driver cannot provide proof of insurance?
That's a good question.
This has been a high level of complaint within our 311 system for a number of years. In fact, our highest.
I was going to say, when we had 311, when we talk about 311 statistics, I remember going, that's the biggest question people ask.
So it's important to bring this conversation back. So generally, our road use compliance team responds to the 311 complaints. It is complaint driven. In other words, we don't have a roving proactive team at this point in time. So, and those officers see what's in 311 and respond to what's in 311. And year to date, they've received 9,000 complaints about vehicles on the roadway.
Wow.
5,100 of those were found to be in violation status and were issued warnings or citation, but it was appropriate. And over 1,200 of those vehicles were actually impounded. Wow. So there is a lot of activity going on out there, but the need is still great. Our Tacoma Police Department is responsible for responding when there are expired tabs, missing plates, or unlicensed drivers. And while they've been resource constrained, as we've talked about in the past, they do continue to do enforcement in those areas. Likewise, we often get a lot of complaints about vehicles where there's human habitation. We have a different response to that situation, and that's where our Tacoma Police Department and our Neighborhood and Community Safety Department, or Community Services Department, excuse me, work really closely together. The police department put in a new program in September of this year to really increase the outreach to those vehicles and assess whether they really are a nuisance vehicle situation, assess whether there are individuals there that could use some resource and some outreach. And so just to share a couple statistics in those efforts, between September 27th and the end of November, which is when they piloted their new collaborative approach on this, there were 371 human habitation vehicles contacted by our community liaisons officers. And they then made outreach requests to our Neighborhood and Community Services Department, the HEAL team that we talked about. They then in turn contacted 211 vehicles in that time frame. 107 of those were moved from the areas, and we ended up towing 23 of those vehicles. So that's an ongoing effort as well to deal with that problem on the roadway. So the answer to the question is yes, we have concrete plans. We're working hard on this issue, and it is a significant issue, and we do recognize it, which is why we even changed this recent response plan, is to try to take a little bit different approach to have more impact on those that are impacted, both whether it's the individuals in using their vehicles for habitation, whether it's the surrounding neighborhood or businesses. So.
Well, Elizabeth, I think we're also I mean, we've been working on it, but we'll continue in 2023 working to find partners to provide safe parking spaces.
We are working on that, and we hope to have something coming on board in the middle of January. So we'll have more to share on that soon.
Looking forward to that, as I'm sure everybody else is. So I'll take our second question, and it came in from Facebook. And it's about community safety, no doubt. I think this year, if we had this show, I don't think there hasn't been a show that we didn't talk about.
There's not
safety.
a day that we don't talk about it.
No, that's true. That is very true. But it asks, in part, how are you working to keep our community and businesses safe? And is there a crime bill that you're working on? So I'm going to take the latter half. Is there a crime bill? I think when someone uses the word bill, I think about state legislation or federal legislation, because we don't really do bills. We do, we do either a resolution or we do an ordinance at the local level. And I don't know that we've specifically done an ordinance about crime. I know that we've done a lot of work with our chief and with you and the city in general around crime in so many different ways. But, we just had a violent crime update from our police chief, which everyone knows. And if you haven't looked at it, please, if you go to the City of Tacoma's website, cityoftacoma.org, and you search crime plan update, you can still go see that study session. It stays on camera, or it stays on our website forever. So people can go back and watch the presentation and hear the direct numbers from our chief. And while that's obviously, it's had some impact, we know that it hasn't had the kind of impact that we all want to see. We're not where we want to be, but we're getting there. We're working towards that.
We are decreasing the 3 violent crimes that it's focused on.
Absolutely.
But we want to see more decrease.
Absolutely, Elizabeth. And I think that we're also doing, in addition to the violent crime reduction plan, the work that we're doing with the University of Texas. They gave their presentation. And like I said, you can go see that, but that talks about the first 90 days. We're going to get another presentation right after the beginning of the year, sometime in the January, February timeframe. And then we're also going to move to phase 2 and 3. But I think if we just look at the success of phase 1, and there are some things that made us receive, that made some of our numbers drop, and that is the fact that just between the time that we implemented and the time that we got the report, we know that at least one officer was present during the treatment location and period. So, the first part of the crime plan called for us to do what's called hotspot policing.
Right.
So, and Elizabeth, I guess that means that we're out in several different places at several different times, bringing awareness.
Right. It's really a high visibility approach.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
And so based on the crime data, they go to a very specific spot,
right,
at a very specific time with a high visibility presence. And we're seeing that that's not only reducing, again, the 3 crimes that we're focused on for that spot, but also for the surrounding area. So we're going to continue to watch the trends as we evolve the hotspots, because we've moved on to some different hotspots under this plan.
Yeah, because we've actually had the kind of impact that we wanted to have in the plan. And I think, the reason I wanted to call that particular piece out is because we have an almost 92% fidelity rate. That means that we had all these places and all these times, and 92% of the time during this first treatment period of 90 days, we were where we were supposed to be at the time we were supposed to be there. And that says a lot.
It does.
Not only about our chief and the plan, but it says a lot about the dedication of our officers to this plan.
It does. And it's been hard. It's hard to be patient when you're experiencing violent crime in your community.
Absolutely.
But this plan is data driven, so it really requires that fidelity. And I am also really proud of the officers for that statistic that you shared, that 92%.
That is huge. We also know that violent crime was down 37% in those treated locations. And again, that doesn't mean that the whole community feels says that we want to be down 100%. But what it does mean is we're seeing some change happening. I know, Elizabeth, as we think about this, I mean, we've got that cautious optimism. I love that word. It's like we're really, we are optimistic, but we are cautious about that because we don't want to get too optimistic and then not continue to change. And so there is a real focus on this. But one of the other things I think about, Elizabeth, as we talk about crime is that even when our numbers get really low, there are some people that no matter how low the numbers get, or even with this kind of change, who still don't feel safe.
Sure.
And I think our surveys tell us that. So I think there's also more work for us to do as it relates to just what safety really means. And I think from the administrative side, you all are going to be looking at that in 2023.
We are looking at that, Mayor, because we do understand, again, that the violent crime reduction plan is focused on 3 subsets of crime, and that there's other kinds of crime
Right.
that cause people to feel unsafe. And we recognize that and acknowledge that, and there's efforts moving forward on addressing those. But beyond crime, we know there's other things in the community that contribute to whether or not people feel safe. Absolutely. And we've been very open to developing an understanding of what makes people safe and then developing a plan around that.
Yep.
And in 2023, we're really going to take the lead on putting a plan together to understand and address that. And that's going to be led by our Strategic Initiatives Office. And so I'm looking forward to that in 2023.
Me too, and community, that would also be your opportunity to get engaged, because we
Can't do it without you.
We can't define what safety means for the community.
Right.
The community needs to tell us, and I believe they will. But there's also, when we think about this idea of safety in our community, there are other partners who do this work with us. It's not just our police department. Obviously, we need to work closely with our jail, with our prosecutors. So there are other things that we have to do to make a community feel safe. And I know that as we are struggling to hire police officers, I know that corrections is also struggling to hire correction officers. Our jail is struggling. So we're all doing the best that we can, and we know we need to do more. But I just am delighted that we have these partnerships, that we understand what each of us needs to make our community feel safe, and are committed to that. And so I think that's where the difference lies. I also want to tell everybody just real quickly that it's cityofTacoma.org/crime reduction. That's how you can get directly to the page that outlines our strategy, what the next phase is, and then what the final phase is, and when we'll be switching up. Now, let's be clear, we're not releasing the places where the hot spots are.
Right.
That list is not there. Nobody needs to know that. But the fact that we are, and when we'll be changing will also be noted there. So look forward to having people look there. So Elizabeth, I think the final question goes to you. That's from Facebook.
Right. So this does come in from Facebook, Mayor, and it relates to our recently passed budget. And the question is that there was an understanding that we did not cut from our homelessness and policing programs, which is true.
Right.
But then they ask, it's specific to homelessness, how much of the budget is actually doing good and how much is for administrative personnel? So I'll take the second part of that first, because we can share that our investment in homelessness includes $23.5 million in contracts that help us provide shelter beds across the city of Tacoma, $4 million for capital improvements to bring new shelter lines on site, and then also while we don't provide direct services in this area, we do a significant amount of contracting for services to support homelessness, both on the prevention side and on the intervention side as well. And so it does take administrative staff to support those programs.
Absolutely.
So the best summary I can give you is in the 23-24 budget, 73% of that budget is allocated to external service contracts. So those are contracts where they're directly providing services. And 10% is for the direct services part of our neighborhood and community service department, which is in the arena of code compliance,
right,
and to support our HEAL team.
Mm-hmm,
they do that level of service providing. And then 17% of is all that goes to administrative support of all the functions that department carries out. So in that 73% of external service contracts, that which go across all areas, goes beyond homelessness.
Right.
So I'm talking about the administrative cost of the department in full beyond homelessness, but includes aging and disability support, blight reduction, certainly homelessness, food insecurity, so many things that department touches on. So basically 17% of their budget is for administrative costs. When we contract for external services, a portion of those dollars go to the administrative support of the nonprofit that we're
exactly
right. So that administrative component is there as well. That leads to the first part of the question that we're addressing second, Mayor, which is this money going for good?
Absolutely.
And there's a couple ways that we could answer that question. Each of our contracts for services have deliverables.
Right.
So when we give money to a provider, we do have standards for them to meet to see if we're using that money effectively. So that's one measure of what we're doing good, is the nature of the contracts that we use. We rely on our Human Services Commission
Absolutely.
to help us with those decisions.
Yep.
And help us decide what's good, where's the good place to spend our dollars.
Absolutely.
Council direction,
Yep.
community input as well. And then the deliverables that we manage within those contracts to see if they're actually performing.
Absolutely.
And then in terms of the city overall, whether or not we're doing good, we as you know, adopt plans with measures that help us answer that question. And so we've just recently shared with the council and the community our homelessness strategy.
Right.
And plan and strategy, where we're really focusing on our levels of sheltering, but also transitioning into more and more permanent supportive housing. So we'll be watching that as a measure of success as we go forward. So I think that's how I would answer that "are we doing good" question. We try to match services to the need of the community. We try to measure the impacts, and we try to adapt.
Elizabeth, I think I think we do great good. I know that everybody doesn't agree with that, and it doesn't necessarily agree. I think sometimes we're not doing enough.
There's
good.
always more need.
Absolutely, and as we think about homelessness or some of the other things that people can visibly see, while we have done a great job in securing more shelter beds, there just seems to be more people who are homeless, and that's why I think obviously we know that this focus on permanent supportive housing is so important, and just want to assure the community that not only are we putting money in Housing Trust Fund to help support some of that, but that we're actually asking both at the state level and at the federal level for additional dollars to help us secure permanent supportive housing. It was a partnership that actually helped us get the development done out on Hosmer, and so Aspen Court. And so while it's shelter right now, it's going to be permanent supportive housing, and that was a partnership with cities and state money to purchase the hotel. So it's those kinds of partnerships that's going to help us do even more good.
And similar plans at 35th and Pacific,
Right.
where we're going to be phasing the kind of support we're giving to individuals that are experiencing homelessness as we go, and evolving that into housing as we go.
And that's the important thing when I think about the question, are we doing good, or when the question about public safety, I was just thinking, public safety alone is over 65% of our overall general fund budget, and the rest go to all of the other departments, like NCS. And NCS doesn't necessarily provide direct services. We support local nonprofits to provide that direct service, and 73% of their money goes directly out the door to those nonprofits. And I think what's important for people to understand is that the nonprofits get to tell us what they can do with the funding. We are not the experts, they are.
Right.
And when they make that plan with us and agree that these are the metrics they will be measured, that there are monthly reports. This isn't something that we just hand out in 1 year and we hear 2 years later. There are monthly reports and reviews that happen to make sure that our partners in this work, our local nonprofits, are doing what they said they could do with the funds. And if there are challenges, we're working with them to see how we can make sure that they do. And I think that's important for our community to know that not only do we do the contracts, but we monitor.
We monitor the contracts, and we do help try to build capacity in our partners. And so a lot of good is being done there, lots more to do.
Absolutely.
And part of how we know whether we're doing good is we listen to the feedback from the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But doing good does not mean there's not more to do. And that we will be continuing to do in 2023. That is all the time we have for today. Again, Elizabeth, always so much fun to have this conversation with you. And we want to thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in 2023 and having more conversations about what's happening inside Tacoma. So we look forward to having you join us again with the mayor and the manager on Inside Tacoma.